There is one exercise that has been shown to restore erectile function in 40% of men with ED and improve it significantly in another 35% on top of that. 75% of men who do this consistently see real results. It costs nothing. It requires no equipment. You can do it anywhere. And I would estimate that fewer than 5% of the men watching this video have ever tried it. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what it is, how it works, and how to start tonight. Stay with me. I'm Dr. Cross, 18 years of clinical practice focused on men's sexual health. And I want to start by asking you something. When you think about fixing erectile dysfunction, what do you think about? Most men think about pills, Viagra, Cialis, maybe supplements, maybe changing their diet. Almost nobody thinks about a muscle. And that is exactly the problem. Because at the core of erectile function, literally at the physical foundation of your ability to get and maintain an erection, is a group of muscles that most men have never consciously trained in their lives. And those muscles are getting weaker every year after 40. Let me break this down for you. An erection is a hydraulic event. Blood flows into the erectile chambers of the penis and needs to stay there under pressure. The pressure is what creates rigidity. Without pressure, you get partial erections, soft erections, erections that don't hold. Now here's what nobody explains. That pressure is not maintained passively. It is actively maintained by a muscle called the bulbocavernosus muscle, part of your pelvic floor. When you get an erection, this muscle contracts and compresses the veins that drain blood out of the penis. It essentially clamps the outflow so blood stays in. The stronger this muscle, the more forceful the compression, the harder and more sustained the erection. A weak pelvic floor means blood drains out faster than it should. The result is exactly what most men with ED describe: erections that start but don't hold, or erections that are softer than they used to be. Here's what most doctors won't tell you. Viagra and Cialis, PDE5 inhibitors, work by relaxing smooth muscle and increasing blood inflow. They do absolutely nothing for the pelvic floor. They do not strengthen the bulbocavernosus muscle. They do not improve your ability to maintain pressure. They treat one part of the hydraulic system and completely ignore the other. This is why some men take Viagra and still get soft erections that don't hold. The inflow is fine. The outflow is the problem, and no pill fixes that. Now here's where it gets interesting. The exercise that directly trains this muscle, the exercise that has the most clinical evidence behind it for erectile dysfunction, is a pelvic floor exercise. Specifically, what most people call a Kegel exercise. I know what you're thinking. Kegels are for women. Every man I bring this up with says the same thing, and I understand why. Because the entire marketing and cultural conversation around pelvic floor exercises has been directed at women for decades. But the anatomy is the same. Men have a pelvic floor. Men have a bulbocavernosus muscle. And men who train that muscle see measurable improvements in erectile function. The research is unambiguous on this. A landmark study published in the British Journal of Urology International followed men with erectile dysfunction who performed pelvic floor exercises for 6 months. The results were striking. 40% of the men in the study regained normal erectile function entirely. Another 35% showed significant improvement. That is a 75% positive response rate. For context, the response rate for Viagra in men with mild to moderate ED is around 60 to 70%. A free exercise that requires no prescription, no pharmacy visit, and no side effects is outperforming medication in head-to-head terms. And almost nobody knows about it. I had a patient, let's call him Tom, 42 years old, high-powered executive, came to me thinking he had performance anxiety. He said his erections were fine when he was alone, but disappeared under pressure with his partner. Classic presentation. Except when I examined him and asked him to perform a pelvic floor contraction, he could barely do it. His pelvic floor was chronically tense and weak, a combination that is extremely common in men who sit at a desk for 10 hours a day and carry stress in their lower body. I gave Tom one exercise to do every day. No medication, no supplements. 8 weeks later, he came back and told me the problem was essentially gone. Not because his anxiety disappeared, because the physical foundation of his erectile function was actually working the way it was supposed to. This is backed by real science, not internet nonsense. The mechanism is real, the research is solid, and the results I have seen in practice over 18 years confirm it consistently. So let me tell you exactly how to do this correctly. Because most men who try Kegel exercises do them wrong, and wrong technique means zero results. The first step is finding the right muscle. The easiest way to identify it. Next time you urinate, try to stop the flow midstream. The muscle you use to do that is your pelvic floor. That is the muscle you are going to train. Do not squeeze your glutes. Do not tighten your abdomen. Do not hold your breath. The contraction should be isolated to the pelvic floor, the area between your sit bones, behind your testicles. Once you can identify the muscle, here is the basic protocol. Contract the pelvic floor and hold for 3 seconds. Release completely for 3 seconds. That is 1 repetition. Start with 10 repetitions, 3 times per day. Morning, midday, evening. The beauty of this exercise is that nobody can see you doing it. You can do it at your desk, in your car, watching television. There is no equipment, no gym, no time commitment beyond a few minutes spread through the day. Over the first 2 weeks, your goal is simply to build the mind-muscle connection. Many men cannot feel the contraction clearly at first. That is normal. The connection develops with practice. By week 3, you should be able to hold the contraction for 5 seconds. By week 6, work toward holding for 10 seconds per repetition. At that point, add a second type of contraction, a fast, strong squeeze and release, repeated 10 times in a row. This trains the muscle for the explosive, high-pressure contractions that matter most during an erection. One critical point that most guides leave out: do not overtrain this muscle. More is not better. Chronic tension in the pelvic floor, which is extremely common in stressed, sedentary men, can actually worsen erectile function. If you feel soreness, tightness, or discomfort in the pelvic region, back off. The goal is a strong, supple, responsive muscle, not a cramped one. 3 sessions per day is the ceiling, not the floor. Most men who follow this protocol consistently report noticeable changes within 4 to 6 weeks. The research shows maximum benefit at around 3 months of consistent practice. This is not a quick fix. It is a genuine physiological adaptation. You are rebuilding the muscular foundation of your erectile function from the ground up. That takes time, but it works. And unlike a pill, the results do not disappear the moment you stop. A trained muscle stays trained. If you take one thing from this video, make it this. Erectile dysfunction is not just a blood flow problem. It is also a muscle problem. And muscles respond to training. Starting tonight, before you go to sleep, do 10 pelvic floor contractions. Hold each one for 3 seconds. Release fully between each one. That is your starting point. Build from there. The 75% of men who responded in the research were not special. They were consistent. I have put together a complete 30-day protocol that combines pelvic floor training with the vascular and nutritional interventions I cover across this channel. Everything I walk new patients through in their first month. The link is in the description if you want the full picture. If this was helpful, hit subscribe. I put out new videos every single day to help you take control of your health. I'm Dr. Cross, and I'll see you in the next one. Let me also address something that comes up often when I discuss this with patients. Men want to know why their doctor never mentioned pelvic floor exercises. The honest answer is time and training. Most physicians spend less than 15 minutes per appointment with each patient. In that time, they need to take a history, examine, diagnose, and prescribe. There is no space to explain the anatomy of the pelvic floor, demonstrate a Kegel contraction, and walk through a progressive training protocol. So they prescribe a pill because it is fast and it works well enough that most patients leave satisfied. The pelvic floor conversation simply does not fit in the model of modern medicine. That is not a criticism of doctors. It is a structural reality. And it is exactly the gap this channel exists to fill. I also want to speak directly to men who are younger, in their 30s or early 40s, who are already noticing changes in their erections. The research on pelvic floor training is particularly encouraging for this group. Younger men with ED are more likely to have a muscular or psychological component than a purely vascular one. Their arteries are generally healthier. Their pelvic floor is often the weakest link. And a weak or tense pelvic floor in a 35-year-old responds to training much faster than it does in a 65-year-old. If you are in your 30s or 40s and you are noticing softer erections, erections that don't hold, or inconsistency in performance. Start this protocol now. Do not wait until it gets worse. The window for rapid improvement is open, and it will not stay open indefinitely. One more thing I want you to understand about the pelvic floor that most people miss entirely. This muscle group does not just control erections. It controls ejaculation, urinary continence, and the overall structural support of your pelvic organs. Men who train their pelvic floor consistently report improvements not just in erectile function, but in ejaculatory control, reduced urinary urgency, and a general sense of pelvic stability that they did not even know they were missing. The benefits compound. You are not just fixing one problem. You are rebuilding a foundational system that affects multiple aspects of your physical and sexual health simultaneously. The men who get the best results from this protocol are the ones who treat it with the same consistency they would give any other training program. You would not expect to build arm strength by doing 10 bicep curls once and never again. The pelvic floor is a muscle. It responds to progressive overload, consistency, and recovery, just like any other muscle in your body. Give it 3 months of serious, consistent effort. Track your progress. Notice the changes. I have watched this work in practice for nearly 2 decades. The biology does not fail when the effort is real. Your body built this muscle. Your body can rebuild it. That is not motivation talk. That is physiology. And physiology responds to the right input, applied consistently over enough time. You have that input now. The only variable left is you.